I'll call roll. Caravello.
Here.
Doom.
Here.
Hiley.
Here.
Hirsch.
Here.
Hunt.
Present.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. There you are. Sorry. Jensen.
Here.
Lagaki.
Here.
Mayeski. Mayeski. Reed.
Here.
Schumacher.
Here.
Pekowski,
Here.
and Venegas.
Here.
Okay, we have 11 alders present. We have Mayeski absent and excused.
All right, thank you. And it is Tuesday, September 28th, and this is the Stoughton City Council meeting. We do have a public hearing scheduled. I suppose we could start with that. And that's in relationship to an item that's further on the agenda. I did not have anyone signed up for the public hearing, but I would close the regular council meeting and reopen for the public hearing if there's anybody that signed up late. And I'm not hearing or seeing anyone, so we'll go ahead and close that. And then we'll get into our regular business. The minutes and reports are in the packet. Nobody was signed up for public comment. So that takes us to communications and presentations. Were there any communications from alders?
I have a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
First, I wanted to remind everybody that last September 22nd of 2020, we passed a resolution declaring the second Monday of October as the Indigenous Peoples' Day in the city of Stoughton. And I just want to remind everybody that Stoughton was actually founded in the region known to the Ho-Chunk people as Tejop, encompassing the 4 major lakes in what is now known as the Madison area. So the Ho-Chunk people lived, farmed, and buried their relatives all around is what we know as Lake Kingansa and also the Stoughton area. And I just want to give recognition and, you know, have all of us remember that on the second Monday of October is actually Indigenous Peoples' Day in the city of Stoughton. And then the second item I'd like to know, and I know we're running up to the end of the month, but we forgot to mention that this month is also Latino, Latina, Latinx, and Hispanic Heritage Month. And I just wanted to recognize that in our city. And so I'd just like us to think about that too as we move forward tonight. Thank you.
And are there any other communications? And I just had one. I just wanted to recognize that it is Public Power Week. So shout out to Stoughton Utilities and the other ones that, you know, keep our power on. Last call for any communications from council members. Okay, hearing none, we do have one presentation, and that's from Steve Steinhoff of the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission. And he's here to give us an update. And if you need to share your screen, Steve, I think you'll be able to do that.
Thanks, Mayor Swadley. Yes, I will share my screen. But let's see, it says I cannot start. Oh, let's see, probably can do it now. Share sound. And yeah,
There it is.
There it is. Put on the slideshow. Turn off the captioning. All right.
Yeah, I would say, Steve, there's probably a few members here that haven't seen you speak before and really probably are not as familiar as Carpsey as some others.
Okay, that's good to know. I do have a few slides about the background on who CARPSI is. So my name is Steve Steinhoff. I am the agency director for the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity to share information with you about our and the region's regional development framework. So as Mayor Swadley said, some of you may not be familiar with CARPSI. We are an independent unit of government, one of 9 regional planning commissions in Wisconsin. And local communities establish RPCs as vehicles to address issues that go beyond their municipal boundaries. Our mission and vision reflect that purpose, with our mission being to engage communities through planning, collaboration, and assistance, and a vision of a region where communities create exceptional quality of life for all, and working together to solve regional challenges. We are governed by a 13-member commission appointed by the Mayor of Madison, the Dane County Executive, Dane County Towns Association, and your representatives are appointed by the Dane County Cities and Villages Association. And you can see the numbers of appointments that each of those appointing authorities has in the parentheses. We bring communities together to collaborate on land use and water quality plans. This includes the regional development framework, as well as the water quality management planning program for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. We also conduct watershed and future urban development plans, and we provide planning, mapping, and data assistance to communities. Just to clear up any potential misconceptions about what we do, here's what we don't do. We don't regulate land use, establish ordinances, issue permits, or conduct other types of regional planning, although we do partner with other regional entities like the Greater Madison Transportation Planning Agency, the Greater Madison MPO, as it's called, to coordinate overall regional planning. So, as I mentioned, regional planning commissions exist to address regional challenges, and the regional development framework is one of the tools that we use, that we will be using to address regional challenges. I am interested in hearing from you, as well as me telling you about framework. And so along with that in mind, here are some questions you might want to consider as you view the presentation. How does the regional development framework compare to your community's future development plans? And what do you think is the best way to implement the framework, both in your community and regionally, and what challenges you think might exist? So to kick off the main presentation, I have a very short video, less than 2 minutes, that gives a broad overview of the framework's purpose and planning process.
One of the Greater Madison region's key challenges is growth. With almost 200,000 more people projected to live in Dane County by the year 2050, our choices about how and where people live, work, and travel set the stage for future quality of life. CARPSI's regional development framework lays the necessary foundations to support continued growth by pinpointing opportunities and mapping realistic planning concepts that activate our greatest potential. It serves as a guide to tackle our common challenges and achieve our shared goals. The work to prepare this framework started about 5 years ago with the Greater Madison Vision Initiative that engaged people across the region to explore possible futures and set priorities. More than 9,000 people completed the Greater Madison Vision Survey. Their top priorities were climate change, access to opportunities, and conservation. Based upon those priorities and local inputs, we drafted a regional development framework to address the challenges of how we grow. The framework focuses growth in vibrant centers and corridors, prioritizes growth in already developed areas, plan areas for traditional neighborhoods and quality business development, and minimize growth in natural resource and farming areas. These strategies help us meet our climate, access to opportunity, and conservation goals. A resilient future starts with the decisions we make today. The Regional Development Framework serves as a guide for incorporating big picture goals into individual decisions about where and how to grow. Please visit capitalarearpc.org to learn more, provide feedback, and request a presentation.
So that gives a very high level overview, and now I'm going to expand On some of the information presented in the video, you heard how the Greater Madison Vision set the stage for the regional development framework and revealed top priorities, which were, as you saw, climate change, access to opportunities, and conservation. In regards to climate change, a top public priority is to reduce greenhouse gases that cause climate change and to become more resilient to the effects of climate change we're already experiencing, especially in our region in the form of higher risk of flooding. Another top priority is to increase access to jobs and services for all people by expanding housing choices, ensuring safe, affordable housing for all, and by creating a robust regional transit system, particularly for Madison, the adjacent communities, but hopefully over time connecting all the communities in the region. And third was conserving our vital natural, agricultural, and fiscal resources, meaning our tax dollars. Using this information that we collected during the Greater Madison Vision process, we developed widely agreed upon goals and objectives for future growth and development. The regional development framework is designed to help accomplish these goals. The framework will be an advisory guide for local communities, regional agencies, and private sector partners. We work closely with the Greater Madison NPO, as I mentioned earlier, to integrate regional land use and transportation planning. So this framework is closely coordinated with the NPO's currently ongoing update of their regional transportation plan, working with the same growth scenario, projections, and many of the same goals and objectives. To prepare the framework, we worked with local community officials to create a 2050 growth scenario that locates people, households, and jobs across the region to meet growth projections. The scenario follows local comprehensive plans. It aims to achieve regional priorities and goals and applies lessons learned from similar regional planning efforts across the country. From this input, we identified the 6 growth strategies mentioned in the video, which I'm going to review in a little more detail. The first strategy is to focus growth in centers and along corridors. The framework defines centers as vibrant places where people can live, work, shop, be entertained, and meet and connect with others. And they're intended to be welcoming places for all people and to foster innovation. The corridors connect the centers, and they provide a variety of ways to travel, including walking, biking, and where possible, transit. They also offer, at least along some stretches, similar combinations of activities found in centers. This map shows where centers currently exist in the green circles and where they could exist with attention to planning and development in the blue circles. Centers are found at a range of scales. So the downtown Madison serves as the one metro center for the region. It's a government, business, and cultural center. Regional centers, somewhat smaller in size, draw people from multiple communities within the region, and smaller yet community centers draw people from across one community. This image shows centers and corridors projected for Stoughton in the 2050 scenario, including downtown, the existing center of downtown, and the potential centers to the east, north, and west. These are drawn from your comprehensive plan, which labels these areas as planned mixed-use areas. The regional development framework locates about 40% of all projected growth over the next few decades within centers and along corridors. Concentrating growth in this manner accomplishes several things related to the regional goals. One outcome is reducing greenhouse gas emissions by bringing people closer to desired destinations. That in turn reduces car travel and car emissions. Centers connected by transit can further reduce car travel. Decreasing distance between destinations can also increase access to jobs and resources and personal needs. Mixed housing types within centers and along corridors improves housing choice, reduces energy consumption, and can reduce people's transportation and utility costs. The second strategy is to prioritize growth in already developed areas. A common example, which you've likely seen, is when outdated strip malls are replaced with taller building for housing and businesses. To show this strategy visually, we can start with the areas already developed today with urban uses, which you see in the gray areas on this map. Then we zoom into the Stoughton area and we see that main areas currently developed in light gray. Maybe you can see my cursor. You see this outline here. These are the main areas already developed. Obviously, it's not 100%, but because we developed these hexagon shapes at a regional scale, this is how they capture the already developed area. It also shows projected concentrations of growth in downtown and along here within the already developed area, as well as new concentrations of growth primarily to your east. These areas of new growth are not 100% of all the growth. It's just the main concentrations of future growth. Because we're showing this at a regional scale. So we zeroed in on those areas of concentrated growth. This strategy also helps conserve taxpayer funds by making better use of the existing infrastructure like roads and pipes, and like developing in centers and corridors. It reduces pressure to develop in farming and natural areas and generates many of those same benefits I described for centers and corridors. The framework's projections forecast 4 out of 10 new households and 1 out of 4 new jobs to occur within already developed areas. Then as our population grows, more good jobs and wealth generating businesses are needed. Suitable sites are needed to accommodate this business growth. So the framework third strategy is to plan areas for such growth to occur. Certain industries concentrated in greater Madison region offer higher wages and stronger career pathways, as well as bring in dollars from outside the region that support other industries and the economy as a whole. Our industries in our region that provide these benefits include information and communications technology, healthcare, advanced manufacturing, and biotechnology. The areas illustrated on this map in red have high concentrations of office, industrial, and medical employment in the growth scenario. Zooming in again to Stoughton, the purple hexagons show concentrated areas of employment growth for the city in the 2050 scenario. Again, so other growth may occur in less concentrations in other areas. This is where the concentrations of employment growth are in the scenario. The fourth strategy is to plan new residential areas according to the principles of complete neighborhoods, sometimes referred to as traditional neighborhoods. Complete neighborhoods include a mix of housing types, walkable streets, parks and civic spaces, and shopping and services. With careful planning, the areas illustrated on the map in blue could achieve those results. These types of neighborhoods provide a wider range of housing options, walking and biking options. They are more compact than conventional subdivisions and thus reduce pressure to develop farmland and natural areas. And they can foster community through walkable streets, neighborhood parks that foster face-to-face interaction. This shows the potential complete neighborhoods within the 2050 growth scenario, mostly in the eastern portion of Stoughton. We used a computer model to estimate the outcomes of the 2050 growth scenario. The model estimates that if the 4 strategies covered so far are implemented, the average household would see a 9% reduction in their transportation and utility costs, as well as the 7% reduction in their greenhouse gas emissions. So those first 4 strategies focused more on where and how to grow. The remaining 2 highlight where to minimize growth and why. So the 5th strategy is to protect natural resources by avoiding protected natural areas and by enhancing what the framework calls resource stewardship areas. The areas in the dark green on this map are the resource protection areas, and in light green, the resource stewardship areas. The protection areas include bodies of water, wetlands, floodplains, shoreline buffer strips, steep wooded slopes, and parklands. In already urbanized areas like Stoughton, these are known as environmental corridors. And current regulations prohibit development in these areas. However, natural resources are also found in areas not legally protected from development, but that still provide important benefits. We call these stewardship areas because preserving their benefits requires stewardship among landowners and communities. Some examples of these areas are potentially restorable wetlands, which can reduce the risk of flooding and increase climate resiliency, high quality woodlands that can increase carbon capture and enhance quality of life, and the 500-year flood zone, also known as areas with a 0.2% annual risk of flooding, but that percentage risk is increasing over time with climate change as our local climate gets warmer and wetter and with more frequent extreme weather events. Here's the map again, zooming in for Stoughton, showing the natural resource protection areas in green and the stewardship areas in that sort of mustard color. And again, the main growth areas in the 2050 scenario. There are significant natural resource areas in the northeast area and beyond of the city. And there are various stewardship areas scattered around the outside of your area as well, including some in the projected growth areas. Final strategy is minimizing development of long-term farmland preservation areas and coordinating development within farmland transition areas at the local level. Farmland preservation areas, shown here very generally, are the areas designated in town and county farmland preservation plans. They may also include agricultural enterprise areas and are typically characterized by large tracts of contiguous farmland and or high quality soils. These areas are generally outside of what we think of as agricultural transition areas, which are identified for long-term expansion of urban areas, sort of this sort of that's represented by the farmland preservation area sort of gradually fading out towards the boundaries of the urban service areas. I think last time to zoom in here, image shows Stoughton 2050 main growth areas and moving outward, these farmland transition areas, and then beyond that, the long-term farmland preservation areas. So applying these 6 strategies overall will reduce the amount of farmland and open space converted to urban development. This graph shows that from 1990 through 2015, the region converted an average of about 4,700 acres of farm and open land to urban development every 5 years. This rate of urban development declined significantly, as you can see where my cursor is, after 2005. The 2050 growth scenario continues that trend and converts a 5-year average of 1,300 acres to urban development every 5 years. So the growth scenario and strategies just described show what we can accomplish together by applying common regional development strategies in a coordinated way. Local communities, private sector partners, other regional entities, and others are the ones that can make this framework happen. Local government officials and residents play a primary role in implementation, so that's you all, particularly through updates to local comprehensive plans. So in putting together plans and policies for future development, you can apply these regional strategies and consider the 2050 growth scenario. You can also implement the framework by preparing more detailed area and neighborhood plans that reflect framework strategies. Other ways you can do that is through changes to your zoning code. And there's other, I'm sure, ways to implement this as well. The private sector is also key to implementing the framework because developers, builders, lenders, realtors, together they plan, finance, develop, build, and sell most of development. And of course, it must be viable in the marketplace or it can't contribute to regional goals. So to make the framework happen, community members need to work together with private sector partners to apply strategies that both meet our goals and succeed in the market. CARPC can help as well. We can help communities with future development planning and facilitate dialogue and information sharing across communities about successes and challenges in applying the strategies. We can provide advisory comments as communities work through the urban service area amendment process. And we will continue and we will track development data moving forward and report on progress towards the goals based on some key performance indicators. So just finish up with a couple slides about the limits of regional development strategies for achieving our shared goals. Remember, these strategies are focusing on the physical development of the region. And if you think about the goal of increasing access to opportunity for all people, we saw that the framework can help achieve this goal by expanding the range of housing choices and better connecting residents to jobs and services. However, also take into account that people have unequal capacity to take advantage of these expanded opportunities, and those with more resources have greater capacity to, for example, afford housing in new and vibrant centers and corridors or in complete neighborhoods, with those with fewer resources will be left out. And in this case, the result of that would be this strategy perhaps perpetuating or even exacerbating existing disparities, many of which are racially based, and thus failing to achieve overall our goal of increasing access to opportunity for all. So really, to achieve this goal, strategies must go beyond the physical development and apply what we might call an opportunity for all lens or an equity lens. Through such a lens, we can see how we might carry out a strategy to reduce inequities and who should help craft that strategy. For example, maybe what additional policies or investment may be needed to ensure broad access to new vibrant centers and corridors. Similarly, transportation tells us a similar story. You saw that in the framework, the growth scenario will reduce average household greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, but will still increase total greenhouse gas emissions simply because you're adding 200,000 more people. So even though each household may, on average, is producing less, you just have a lot more households that ends up increasing the total greenhouse gas emissions from transportation. And this falls short of Dane County's Climate Action Plan target, which calls for net zero carbon emissions from vehicles by 2050. So to close this gap, again, policies and investments beyond the physical development will need to occur. For example, investments to encourage more options in driving alone. The MPO is currently in the process of updating their regional transportation plan, and we'll be exploring a lot of these options. So that brings my presentation to a close, and just quick throw these questions up again about how the framework relates to your plans and how to implement it in your community beyond, and what challenges may exist. So with that, I will stop sharing and open it up for questions.
All right, we're on Zoom tonight, so if you can raise your virtual hand, that helps. Did anybody have any initial questions? I can see all now, so you probably raise your regular hand if you'd like. And did I see Alderperson Jensen? No? Okay. Well, thank you, Steve. You know, for everybody that's on the meeting, Steve is a great resource for us. And as I'm thinking about our sustainability committee, we had our second meeting last night with, you know, Rachel being the chair of that. I think there's some opportunity to tap into some of that knowledge that Steve and his team has. Alderperson Caravello, did you have a question or comment?
I did. I guess a question or comment could be perceived as both. I was glad, Steve, that you touched on transportation at the end, and just want to encourage or whatever can be done between CARPSI and the MPO as far as creating some sort of regional transportation plan that we can actually get connected by options other than personal automobiles into the other parts of the greater Madison area. So I know that's something that is on people's minds, and as far as something to solve climate change, some steps toward solving climate change issues, but that seems to be something that's long overdue for the greater Madison area.
My cat apparently agrees. So thanks, Oliver Caravello, for that comment. And I think that's very on target. And I mentioned that the MPO is updating their regional transportation plan. And I'm sure Bill Schaefer would be happy to come and talk to you as that plan starts, options that they're exploring start taking shape. They are going to run a number of what if scenarios and do modeling to see, what different things like electrified vehicles or connected autonomous vehicles, or big increase in working at home, or large increases in transit, things like that could have, or combinations of those what if on vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions, to try to help close that gap between what we can do with physical development versus and what needs to be done overall with transportation. For the physical development is important because it helps create the context with which transit and other reduced solo driving options become viable. But it alone coordinating that with transportation policies will be key.
And we do have representation on the MPO. Phil served on there as a citizen member. Director Shields on there as a technical advisory member. I'm on the, I think it's policy committee, I think is what they're calling it. We've only had one meeting. So we do have some representation. So certainly feedback that we would get from the council and the community would be helpful to help us, achieve our goals. I had President Hirsch, and then I had alders. I'm not sure who was first, either Tukalski or Venegas. You two can fight over it, but we'll let Regina go first.
Thanks. I was just wondering, I was kind of surprised at the only 7 and 9% reduction after all the modifications. But I was wondering, when you're talking about new housing development, if you're also looking at ways that the developers, are you partnering with them to make their buildings more sustainable, more energy efficient, more green on a lot of the different aspects?
Yeah, thank you. First, to your comment about the climate and the household cost spending reductions, it's important to keep in mind that the model that we use to generate those only take into account these land use changes. Does not include any changes to the transportation system. So those essentially have yet to be added in, and that's what the MPO will be doing when they update their regional transportation plan. So, it sort of shows the potential and yet also the limitations of what you can accomplish through land use alone. Again, the land use portion is really important to making the transportation investments, viable, but it has its, it does have its limitations in terms of just as a solo strategy. It really has to be an integrated strategy, which gets to your sort of your other question, which is factoring in other aspects like housing, building energy reduction, and you didn't mention this, but also housing affordability. As we prepare our recommendations, I mentioned in my presentation applying what we might call an equity lens. We're also going to apply other lenses related to our, oh, it's really noisy around here. Other lenses related to for climate and conservation. So, as we do these developments, if you apply a climate lens, yes, then recommendations should include things like building energy reductions, electric vehicle charging, stations within as factored into buildings, and we are coordinating with the Dane County Climate Action Council and that office of the county to bring our goals and recommendations in sync. And another opportunity to bring in other factors is next year, the Dane County Housing Initiative, which you may be aware of, run out of Dane County Planning and Development. Olivia Perry staffs that, will be launching a regional housing strategy initiative to prepare common regional housing strategies for communities across the region. So that, again, that's sort of adding on that other layer, and they're going to, focusing a lot on affordability to ensure that as we develop these new areas, that there is access to opportunity for all as part of that goal.
All right, who wants to go next, Joyce or Rachel?
I'll defer to Rachel. Alder Venegas.
I just had something quick that just reminded me that on August 23rd, I received an email from Bill Schaefer from the city of Madison with the subject Connect Greater Madison Regional Transportation Plan 2050 update, interactive mapping tool available for submitting comments. And looks like it's open until October 3rd. So I might encourage people to fill that out. It's on my to-do list.
All right, Alderperson Tukowski.
I just have a quick one, which is, it seems to me lately that the walkability and bikeability are recurring themes. And so that we might want to take a look at that in our next comprehensive plan and expand that section a bit. And Rodney knows too, I've collected a few resources, and I'm very interested in those, making sure that we have a good picture of the walkability and bikeability of what we do.
And if I may make one comment on that, the map that Alder Venegas mentioned, that you could online interactive map where you can identify improvements or changes or issues or concerns. You can do that for within Stoughton, and all that information that they're going to compile and pass along to each local community. So in a way, it will be an opportunity for you to make comments that could inform your next planning efforts too.
All right, Alderperson Legaki has her hand up. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, as you talk about housing affordability and the equity lens, are there any, in keeping with these 2050 plans, are there any suggested, are you sharing any of the resources around the equity lenses that might be helpful or resourceful for communities like Stoughton that are trying to increase our diversity, equity, and inclusion?
We are, in the process of drafting the regional development framework document itself or document and website, and we can include that. That's a great suggestion, and we can include some of those in that document.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, thanks again, Steve. Appreciate your time and your presentation and your thoughtful answers to the questions.
All right, thanks again for the opportunity, and have a good rest of your meeting.
All right, I'll see if I can get everything back up here again. Hopefully you can see the agenda again. We're on the consent agenda, and it looks like there's 3 items on the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second with a question. I mean, I'll second, but then I also have a question on it.
Okay, go ahead, Alderperson, President Hirsch.
On the authorizing and directing for the operator licenses, on that page, I noticed that there were 2 people that didn't have where they're going to use that license listed, and I was wondering if that is available or if that's normal. I have not seen that before, that they were not actually listed of where they're going to be working.
We have people that apply and do not put down where they're going to work at because they're just applying at different places. So they do not have a designated employer at the time of application.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure, you're welcome.
Right, any other questions? All right, hearing none, all in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Item number 6, R103 of 2021, Alderperson Caravello.
And there it is. Yes, this is resolution R103 of 2021, discontinuing Castle Circle in the meadows of Kettle Park West. And I so move.
And is there a second?
Second.
And second, I think it was Venegas. Sorry, I can't see anybody right now on the screen. Any questions or comments on this one, or anything you want us to cover?
Any questions really, I guess, would go to Rodney. This is coming back from Castle Circle as this sort of, I don't know, I guess I'd call it a horseshoe shaped piece out in the meadows that the developer has requested, or KPW folks have requested, that they no longer want this design or to utilize this circle horseshoe design.
Maybe if I could just add, just for people to understand, it hasn't actually ever been improved. It's an area that was platted, but the streets were never put in. Actually, it was a comment by staff to try to avoid that type of cul-de-sac or horseshoe configuration back when the plat was put together. I guess they've moved into understanding how they can capitalize by having more lots within this area and take care of a maintenance concern that we had with this configuration. So we're supportive of this discontinuance.
All right, any questions on this one? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Next item is from Public Safety, Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's Resolution 140 of 2021, approving a Class B liquor and beer license for Pamela Kosanovic, and I would recommend approval.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. I didn't catch who that was. Sorry.
I think it was Ozzy.
Okay. Second by Doom. Anything you want to cover on this one, Alderperson Jensen?
No, this is the one that we addressed, what, maybe 3 meetings ago. And it's coming back now for finalization. Everything was cleared up. The location issue that the chief had, I believe, has been cleared up. I'm sure if he wants to speak to that, he can. Other than that, I would, as I said, I recommend approval on this.
All right, any questions or comments from alders? All right, hearing and seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Next item is also from public safety.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's resolution R-143, 2021, appointing Eric Frankson as agent for Stoughton Opera House at 318 East Main Street, and I move for approval.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. I think was it President Hirsch?
Yes.
Okay. Any comments, Alderperson?
It's just a change of agents. There were no issues with it. Everything was as it's supposed to be. All the paperwork was correct. And I don't believe there were any objections from the chief.
All right. Any questions or comments from alders? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. I'm gonna skip down a little bit. There's some people here that would probably appreciate it if we could take action on their items so they can log off the meeting. So I'm gonna start with a first reading of ordinance 21 that came from the Plan Commission. And like I said, it's the first reading. Alderperson Caravella, can you introduce this one?
Sure. This is ordinance 21 of 2021, an ordinance amending the zoning classification at 2124 Whole Circle in the city of Stoughton, Wisconsin, and this is a first reading.
All right. Anything you want to cover on this, or Director Shield?
Maybe I could just highlight for the other alders, it is still going to remain a single family zoning. The different district that's being requested here would accommodate a slightly different setback for the rear yard. And it is still consistent with the comprehensive plan as it would remain a single family zoned parcel.
And I'm trying to pull up the map for you. And it did come through the Plan Commission, and then as required through that, there was a public hearing. I don't believe anybody spoke on this particular one, and you can kind of see the lot in question here, surrounded by the yellow. Any questions or comments tonight? If not, it would be back at the next meeting for approval. And if something comes up, feel free to send Director Shield an email and he'll try to answer your questions before the next meeting. Next item is R-149, and this one here came through the Plan Commission. Alderperson Caravello.
And this is R-149 of 2021, approving a conditional use permit request by Joanne Grassman for an Artisan production shop use at 501 East Main Street, Stoughton, Wisconsin, and I so move.
And is there a second?
Second.
I didn't catch the second, I'm sorry.
Dr. Reeves.
Okay. Thank you. Alderperson Caravello.
I heartily endorse this resolution. This is to convert what a lot of us might know as what was the Doughboy building at 501 East Main Street into a woodworking maker space and a retail artisan home furnishings gallery.
Any questions or comments on this one?
just looking forward to it being done. I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah, I think we all are. This will be a great use of the building and a welcome addition. All right, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. The next one also came from the Plan Commission.
And this is R-150 of 2021, approving an extraterritorial jurisdictional land division request by Paul Koyo, I believe it's pronounced, or Kojo. Sorry for
Koyo.
any issues there. And well, where are you going, Tim? Bring it back. I'm not done reading it.
Just messing with you.
Request by Paul Coyle for property located at 1442 Lake Kaganza Road, Town of Rutland, Dane County, Wisconsin, and I so move.
Second.
And a second by Alderperson Jensen. All right, I just learned a trick. If I stop sharing my screen, I can actually see who's seconding the motion. All right, now let me share my screen again so you can see the map.
And this is essentially to split off a 5.25 acres of residential land from the ag land on this property.
All right, any questions or comments on this resolution? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Thank you. All right, I know there's somebody on here from the Snow Drifter, so I didn't want to keep it waiting. And this one from the Public Safety, Alderperson Jensen.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I think Ron is on there someplace. This is Resolution 151 of 2021, approving designated snowmobile routes in city right-of-way, and I would move for approval.
Second.
Second by Venegas.
All right, a motion and a second. Alderperson Jensen.
Yes, this is something that the snowmobile club has to do every year. They have to get permission to ride within the city right-of-way. I believe if you go scroll up a little bit, it shows a map in there of where the routes are. This year they had to change it a little bit because they weren't getting permission from, what is it, Dollar Tree out there?
Yes.
So it's changed a little bit, but insignificant as far as we're concerned. The chief, again, I don't want to speak for him, but if he'd like to speak on this, go ahead. But everything seemed to be in good order, and I would would recommend approval.
All right. Anything you want to add, Chief Leck or Ron from the Snow Drifters?
No, I think that Greg summed it up pretty good. This is an annual approval, and there have been no past issues with having the trail coming into the city.
All right. Any questions or comments from council members? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Let's hope we get a little snow this year.
Thank you.
Right, have a good night. We might as well do this last, we'll go ahead and do this last public safety item. Alderperson Johnson, go ahead.
Okay, that'd be item 19 then. All right, so this is resolution 152, 2021, US Highway 51 speed limit request 2021 updated. And I would move for approval.
Second.
Second by
So-
Alderperson Doom.
Yeah.
Yes.
got it there. Yeah, so what this is it's a resolution asking the Wisconsin DOT to decrease the speed limits on Highway 51 west of Hole, from where it's I believe it was from when it's 35 to 25 and from 45 to 35 and from 55 to 45 out to Highway B. And this is just a request. I mean, we can't do more than that. Obviously, we've had some safety issues there, and hopefully that reducing the speed will help reduce the severity of the accidents. I don't think it'll reduce the accidents, but it'll hopefully reduce the severity of them. And I don't know, Chief, you have anything to add?
Excuse me, just for clarification, it'd be changing the 45 currently to 35 from Highway 138 51 west to Velcom Waves, about the area where the 45 stops, and then asking DOT to extend that 45 area past the Rutland Dunn Town Line Road, where we've been having some serious crashes.
Okay.
Mayor, if I could just add one point that I think is important as well. It's also asking the DOT to really recognize that the city's intention to have it be a 35-mile-an-hour corridor long-term out to County Highway B. Therefore, as they design the majors improvements that are anticipated in the next 10 years along that corridor, they could structurally make design considerations based on a design speed of 35 as opposed to 55. So that's the spirit of this memo, to really reinforce the city's long-term interest to reduce the speed structurally as they continue to design improvements here.
All right. And I just want to take a moment to thank Director Shield and Chief Leck worked together. And there might have been others as well, but I know for sure those two put the most time into it, putting this resolution together based on, some really serious occurrences that are happening there. And we know with the potential development, there's just going to be more traffic. So I think this is about as proactive as we can get out there. Hopefully the DOT will take this, into consideration. Any questions or comments from alders?
Oh, I was gonna say that the same thing. Thank you for whoever, I guess it's Rodney and Chief Leck who put this together. It's been on, it's been a problem for a long time, and I know we've been trying to figure out how to solve it, and I just thank you for stepping forward with this potential solution.
All right, and I had Alderperson Lagaki and then Hiley.
This has been a problematic area. Thank you very much for putting forward this memorandum. And I would hope that we as a city would, I know this may appear in the hub, but there's been lots of discussion on other platforms, and I would encourage city staff to definitely put out information on our social media platforms that we are, depending upon our vote, that we are sending this forward in an effort to try to help prevent this very, very dangerous area.
All right, thank you. Alderperson Hiley.
I appreciate the recognition that the road geometry is an important factor in this. A wide open road, regardless of the speed limit, kind of invites our brains subconsciously to go faster, and that lower speeds are not just a function of the number on the sign.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that motion does carry. All right, we'll go back to item number 9, which came out of the Finance Committee. Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, R-144, 2021, authorizing and directing proper city officials to amend the 2021 City of Stoughton Capital Improvements Plan CIP budget. So moved.
Second.
And a second by Alderperson Reeves. Alderperson Schumacher, go ahead.
All right, a lot of this has to do with the pedestrian bridge and the riverfront and several of the different projects that we've had going over a couple of years now. So because of some delays in certain parts, and we've re-strategized on a few other parts, this is to keep like 6 of the project codes, to keep them the same so that we don't kind of lose track of them when we switch from 2021 to 22 CIP. So it keeps the record keeping a little bit more clear. That's about all I've got to add on that. Jamin, do you want to add anything into that?
Sure, I can speak to the finance piece, and yeah, you pretty much hit it on the head, Alder Schumacher. This technically is a 21 project, but because it was delayed due to a couple extenuating circumstances, obviously COVID was one, and then we had the Brink development coming online, and all of that has been finalized at this point. It's easier to just follow this project coding as opposed to add additional amounts into a 2022 CIP budget with 2022 project codes. So that's why we're proposing just a simple budget amendment to maintain these project codes. You can see we've been incurring costs to these codes since 2020. So, you know, to avoid confusion and just simplify the process, we're just asking to amend the 21 projects. And I think you can see basically the budget amendment being asked for is in the red there. So we're asking to amend the 20073 budget amendment, and then the bottom two to amend those project budgets as well. So, but with that, I'd be happy to answer any of the finance aspects of this as well.
I have Alderperson Lagaki.
David, can you explain the 92,250 coming in to the budget?
I think it was a slide you just had. There you go. Yep, right there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just adjusting to actuals. Obviously, this project has been evolving, especially with the Brink plans and everything. So they've been working with Brink's engineers throughout this entire process. So we're just looking for a budget amendment in total, but you can see engineering would go up 48,000. We'd be reducing the riverbank restoration by 92,000 because we have a revised scope on that. And then you can see the riverfront trail and amenities is going up by the 317, but the net overall budget amendment is the 272.
Understood. I just was curious about the money coming in. What changed?
I can't answer that. I would leave that up to either Director Glenn or Director Shield in terms of what's changed in the scope. So.
Thank you, Damon.
So this is Rodney. Some of the items along the riverbank and the amenities, I think we've taken the plans with the river walk and the bridge abutments and the bridge crossing to various committees. Along the way, there's been lighting initiatives, solar introduction, and a number of things related to that have caused some of the numbers to shift between the various amenities and riverbank restoration. But in ultimate total, it's actually an increase because of the larger scope of work that's really being accomplished as part of this project now, as that project scope did creep. But certainly that's related and reflected in the more accurate estimates that we have available as the design emerged and has become finalized now.
So I guess, Jamin, just one final finance question for me. So the funds that are going to be used to pay for this?
So this is a TIF number 8 project. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts right now with this. So we're moving forward, assuming the best, that the Brink deal closes in February of next year, that we get the sales proceeds. this, that, and the other thing. So obviously we're going to have to keep our eyes on the progress of the riverfront development itself. But as of right now, this is forecasted to be funded through the TIF. And it's built in as part of the overall kind of borrowing that we're going to do in 2022 that relates to obviously this project along with their environmental remediation and everything else. All of this was built into the TIF number 8 cash flow forecast in relation to the Brink municipal revenue obligation that was approved, I think, at the last meeting. So we forecasted this in there, we built this in there as if this amendment was going to go through. But again, a lot of this hinges on some contingencies being met. So we'll keep an eye on it. And if anything happens to fall through, obviously we'll have to come back and revisit the way we're going to approach this project.
All right. Anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. All right, we're going to item number 10. And where'd it go? I'll figure this out by the end of the night.
You're doing great.
There it is. Item
All
number
right.
10 is coming from utilities, and that would be Alderperson Venegas.
This is Resolution 145 of 2021, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve an amendment to the 2021 Water Utility Capital Improvement Project funding to relocate the existing water main crossing Wisconsin Highway 138. I so move.
And is there a second?
Second.
I think I heard Alderperson Reeves. This one also came through the Finance Committee, but go ahead, Alderperson Venegas.
And I believe Jill is on this evening, if there are any questions.
I can give a little background on the project. This project actually came forward to us in November of last year. DOT let us know that there was some water main lowering and some relocation that was needed. We timing wise thought at that point in time, we didn't have anything budgeted for it, but we could look to do that in 2022. Over the summer here, they've actually bidding all 3 roundabout projects, and they're going to move forward as soon as they possibly can come spring of 22. So we would really miss the opportunity to get this water main lowered and relocated as basically help facilitate the roundabout at 138. We estimate the total cost to be about $74,340. We do get a portion of that reimbursed to us through DOT once the project is complete, and we suspect about 46% of that will be reimbursed back to us.
All right, any questions or comments or anything from finance to add?
No, we didn't have any issue, or I mean, we talked about a couple of questions as Jill alluded to with the percent that would be reimbursed on there. That was about the only questions that we had.
All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed. That motion does carry. And the next item is coming from finance, and that would be Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, R146 2021, authorizing the future acceptance of Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Forest Fire Protection Grant funds pending review of the final grant agreement terms by the appropriate city staff. So moved.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Reeves. And Alderperson Schumacher, care to elaborate?
Sure. This one was regarding the fire departments, their ATV with the tank and pump that they had in the CIP for replacement, and they were looking to get grant funding to help offset some of the cost in there. The DNR had a 50-50 grant city match fund in there for that. I don't know if Chief Rip wants to add anything more to that, but does help us out on the budgeting side, saves us a little bit of money.
And I know Chief Rip and Director Friedel had a couple of conversations about this, and I think we landed in the place that we had hoped to. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries. All right, I figured it out. Next item also came from finance earlier tonight. This one was time sensitive. Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, R-147, 2021, authorize the execution of the pricing addendum to the 2018 shared ride taxi contract with Running Incorporated. So moved.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Doom, Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, this one was a Wisconsin Department of Transportation had provided us with their information on what the rates needed to be changed to. It's sort of mechanical. We don't have control over that. They just tell us what to increase them to. This is the last year of the contract we have with Running Incorporated. So we had to do this by the addendum. The monies will be covered mostly by passenger fares and other grant revenues. And this one needed to go fairly quickly tonight because we got the information on September the 14th and the DOT needed their answer back by September 30th. So this one had to come in expressly. And
All right.
that's about all.
Nice explanation of that. Any questions or comments? Did you write that down or did you remember all that from earlier?
I remembered a lot of it. Sometimes my memory works well.
All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. All right, let me get to this. Next one is going to be a first reading, and this one came from the Plan Commission. Alderperson Caravello.
There it is. This is ordinance 20 of 2021, an ordinance amending the zoning classification of certain lands located within the replat of the Meadows at Kettle Park West in the city of Stoughton, open space and right of way to SR5, single family residential.
All right.
First reading.
It's a first reading, and who would like to explain this one?
I'll let Rodney explain it.
I think it's fairly straightforward. The lands in item 6 that we discontinued as public right of way now needs to have zoning cast upon it. And therefore this zoning ordinance is putting that in place.
All right, that was simple enough. Any questions on it for this evening? Hearing none. Okay, so that one will be back at the next meeting. And I'm gonna pull up, the next one is, I have an updated resolution based on some feedback that we had from President Hirsch. So let me just pull that up quick. And this is going to be R-148, and this one is coming from the Plan Commission. So that would be Alderperson Caravello. As soon as I can get the screen back up here.
I know it's resolution 148 of 2021.
Here it is. I did it.
There it is. So There's resolution 148 of 2021. Resolution by the Common Council of the City of Stoughton conditionally approving the final plat of the replat of the Meadows, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Alderperson Caravella, if you want to cover what you know of it, and then we'll have either Director Shield or Attorney Dragney explain what we added on, which I'll show you shortly.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of basically is what it is, except for that, yeah, as I saw that amendment today regarding something about Block 5 Outlot 1, but I will let whoever wants to pick it up from there.
I can explain. So this is the final plat for the replat of the Meadows addition. You'll recall the preliminary plat's been before you as part of the council action prior to this. The highlighted item 7 was added to tie the rezoning action that we had a first reading on to the actual signature of the plat. So the rezoning will not become effective, or the ordinance won't be acted on until next meeting. So this language is intended to say the plat can't be signed unless the rezoning ordinance is passed. So this really just ties those together to allow the rezoning action to take place at a subsequent meeting, but we can't sign the plat until that action's been approved.
All right. Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Did I miss anything as I was skipping around, or did I get everything?
You got it all.
All right, so I'm looking for one more motion then.
Vote to adjourn.
Here, a second.
Second.
Second by Caravello. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Have a good night. Thank you.
Night all.
Bye-bye.
Good night.